Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next Doctor Who review. Um, and each week we do a review of the episode that has just been on. So today we're going to be talking about the story and the engine. Today, it's really cool because each episode is a different concept of how maybe people turn up for it, which is really interesting. Because I don't think we've had one episode where I don't know. We haven't had one episode, two in the trot, like two in a row, that has been had the same amount of people on the call.
Yeah.
Um, which is quite funny. It is quite funny. So this time we've just got Jack, and it's quite cool because not everyone could be available every week. Um, so it's different. So yeah, but yeah. So today we're going to be reviewing the story and the engine, and we're also going to be talking a little bit about the Interstellar Song Contest because that's coming up. So any final reviews on who Miss Flood might be, um, yeah. Well, we're under the mindset we might know who Miss Flood might be in the next episode. So yeah, we'll talk about that as well. But so Jack, what did you think of the story and the engine?
Okay, so so initially when I watched it, it was a 10 out of 10. Um, and the reason for that is because I just love, and still do to this day, love how we explored the fact that this is the first time that the Doctor has a black body, exploring African culture, going to Nigeria, where Ncuti Gatwa, publicly stated he wanted an episode set in Nigeria. And the way the episode plays out, I just thought was chef's kiss. So it was a 10 out of 10. However, I've now watched the four episodes. I've now watched the episode four times, and I'm bumping it down to an 8 out of 10. Now, I'd always like to say in the mindset after watching, because how I watch it is basically I get ready for work. So I wake up about 6:30, 7 o'clock time, and I make myself a coffee and breakfast, and I watch the episode, and then I have to leave for work 10 minutes after the episode finishes. So that gives me literally all day from 9 till 5 about me thinking about the episode, absorbing the episode. And so the excitement of the episode after watching it was obviously going to be there. So upon the second viewing and third viewing, I watched the episode two more times on that same day. Um, and then I watched it again this morning, and I just think there are areas here that I think could have been better. Now, I'm not going to say the writer's name because I don't want to badly pronounce the name bad. So I think it's Inua, I think. Is
Yeah,
it Inua?
I think so. Yeah.
Apologies if I've pronounced that wrong. But Inua is such a fresh face to Who, and I love that. And I love what he's done here. And he's the first time in history to have a cameo in the episode as well. If you spot him, he's the one when Belinda, accidentally falls and drops all the things, the food on the floor. He's the guy that goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" That's him.
Yeah.
Um, I love that. What he crafted here, the concept of the story in the engine and the barber shop, I just thought was such a refreshing take. That's why it's so high in terms of ranking. Like it's an 8 out of 10. That's still a high score. To me, a low score is if you're down to like six. So seven or up is like a really good high score.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say three things that I think are positive and three things that I think are negative. Okay, so my first positive is the opening. I love how the doctor was real with Belinda. I love how the doctor is just saying, look, this is my first time in this black body, and certain parts of the world don't accept that. But here, I feel safe. And I love when Belinda said, Doctor, you say you're an alien, but that's the most human thing you've ever said. Oh, you could ever say. And I love that. I love it where, I don't think Ruby or the Doctor really had that in season one. This is where, and I still love Ruby, but Belinda here really gets to shine, and I love that. The second thing I love is the concept of where this idea came from. It's about telling stories to the barber. basically. When you go to barber shops, you always feel like you're open and you can feel like you can talk about literally anything. I love that, and I love how that became a story concept and how you have to tell a story, otherwise the spider won't move.
Mm.
And the third thing, this is my favorite part of the episode, and I thought it gives me chills every time I watch it, is when Ncuti was talking to Omu. I think his name's Omu, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it Omar or Omu?
Omo.
Omo. So again, apologies if we pronounce these names wrong. We don't mean to. It's just obviously they're lovely names. I just can't pronounce them properly. Um, but when he was like, "Nope, I trusted you. I'm leaving. Why can't you leave?" It's different. No, it's not. I'm going to open it. And as soon as he opens it, and you see the doctor get blasted straight out, and the way the shot composition was happening, my favorite part to that was obviously we've seen it in the trailers where the doctor goes, "What the hell is this?" I love how he was already annoyed, and he's like, "Oh, come on, what is going on here?" I love that. That was so cool. But here are my three negatives about the episode. Whilst I love this moment, I love having Joe Martin back as the fugitive doctor. I just don't think it was needed. I thought it felt a bit misplaced here. Um, and I just think that the episode could have done without Joe Martin, because it just doesn't make sense. How could the 15th Doctor remember the daughter of the Anansi, um, when it was clearly a fugitive time where the Doctor has no memory of that? That doesn't make sense, hence why I think it's just a bit misplaced. The second thing is that this episode is very heavily dialogue heavy, which leans into exposition. It's the least thing I hate in any TV show or film, exposition, because you have to do it right. If you don't do it right, it feels off. It's very exposition heavy, and I think it kind of lets the episode down. Um, and the third thing I would say is the episode, I would say in the middle part gets a bit boring. Um, but the opening of it, I'd say the first 15 minutes is great. The last 15 minutes is great. It's just that half an hour where it could be a bit of a mixed bag to me.
Yeah,
Um, there could be
I
some
agree.
great moments. Yeah, there could be some great moments in there, which is clearly the case. And there could just be some moments where I think I would have done that. I would have done that differently. Um, I just think the episode overall it's a really good episode. I really, really like it. It's an 8 out of 10. I just think that with these things here, it kind of lets the episode down. And one thing I would say as well is why the hell did Disney reveal that shot of the spider being exploding in the trailer?
We knew that was happening.
We knew that was happening, so it took away the impact. Like honestly, it's like showing a regeneration in the episode. Come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, 8 out of 10 for me.
8 out of 10 for you. So for me, I was not. It's not my most favorite episode of the series. Um, that's probably purely because the series has been so good. So far, and I I've watched it. I think probably 2 times, and I've even had conversations with people to try and understand it a bit more. Because it is a very complex episode. And understanding who the barber actually is, um, and stuff like that. So I gave it initially a 7 out of 10, but after I watched it the first time, I upped it to a 7.5 out of 10. Because I felt, for me, the scene at the end, where the barber and the doctor, well, the barber comes to the tree, that whole sequence I thought was lovely. As
Mm,
soon as the barber got there, and the music and what the barber was saying to the doctor, and when all the other doctors come on the television screens, for me that saved the episode. If that wasn't there, that my ranking could have even gone down to 6. That's what saved it for me. Nothing that happened in the barber shop. Really, I just got bored of it. I got bored. I got bored with the delaying of the barber who he was. right? Because as soon as the Doctor comes in, it's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "You'll find out soon enough." And then the Doctor says that when he exits it, "You'll find out soon enough." So it was just really annoying. That why couldn't the barber just tell everyone who he was at the start? Because he didn't really tell anyone anyway. He was just really cryptic about it, saying, I made them all and stuff." So really, what who the barber is under my, I would see if you agree with me here. It's just stuff I've been told by people. So the barber isn't Anansi who he claimed. He isn't any of those gods who he claimed. He lied, like the Doctor said. And what he is, he's basically um, he worked. He wanted to work with the gods, but the gods betrayed him. So basically, he's just this storyteller whose stories, for some reason, come true. Um, and that Anansi spider isn't really Anansi. It's just a concept of Anansi that he's made because of storytelling. So any of this is really cryptic because you would automatically think it's Anansi because of the African folklore. So it's a really hard one to get a concept, but it has been a while since we got an episode like this where you have to watch it over and over again to actually understand it because people will just rank it low in that concept of not understanding it. But I don't rank it low. When I rank an episode, I like to cover everything. I don't like to rank it just because of one thing. Um, Part in the middle was really boring. I felt like it could have been that concept anyway because of it just been set in the barbershop the whole time. But I felt it had a really good start. I think the pacing could have been done with another 5 or 6 minutes, which is it is the kind of every episode really, except from the well. I think the well, except barring the well, I think every other episode could have done with a 5 or 6 minutes time wise. But
Okay.
yeah, I do think this reminds me at the end of Lux to this episode. I don't know if you could relate, but at the end of Lux, Smith started saying something while we could hear the theme music. And what the Doctor says at the end of this episode, once upon a time, and I'm not sure he might close the TARDIS doors or not, but just after he says that, it would have been nice for him to go in to finish the episode, going into the TARDIS and just saying a little bit more, and it would have been nicely finished there. So really, I'm finishing there. So yeah, a 7.5 out of 10 for me, but yeah, the weakest so far for sure, but it's not the worst episode in the world. It's an okay episode.
I agree with that. I think this episode, if you if you were to do a ranking, there has to be one at least at the bottom. And it's nothing personal. It's not saying it's not that I don't like you, it's just there has to be one at the bottom. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
it unfortunately I do think it is going to be that episode only because to me, I actually wouldn't say it needed 5 more minutes. I think it needed to cut 5 minutes because I just found that middle section. There was a point that I would never in a million years pause an episode of Doctor Who. But when I watched it again this morning before work, um, I paused it to make myself a coffee and take my time with it. And I thought, is this actually how I feel about the episode? Um, I thought talking about the barber, um, I agree with you. I think I deliberately, when I watched it for the fourth time and the third time and all that, it was like, right, I'm gonna hyper focus on you. What are we saying about you? What's your purpose? Who you actually? And they deliberately not talk about it. And I'm like, you can't just do that because that is robbing, you know, the satisfaction and your time of watching this episode. Like this episode is so monumental, and that's why I love it because it's the first time the Doctor, as a black incarnation as the Doctor, this is the first time the Doctor is going to Nigeria and spending the full episode there. And I
yeah,
think that's such a beautiful, beautiful thing, and it needs more of that. Um, I just think though, in order to do that and make that such a monumental thing, you have to make, the episode also worth your time.
yeah,
And you have to not to say that, even if it's a bad episode, it's not worth your time for the Doctor to be in Africa. Absolutely not. Not the case at all. What I'm trying to say is as well, it still has to be a good script to work, if that makes sense. And it is a good script, I just think that there are elements here that I would say, right, I could I like this barber concept where you go into the barber shop and you're going it's like, to me, this is how I would think of Doctor Who. I watched your review, not all of it, of course, but with Lua talking about ranking each seasons of Doctor Who,
Yeah.
uh, talking about the best and the worst. And you got to season five or series five, Matt Smith's first episode. And I would say the story and the engine is probably on par with The Lodger
Yeah.
because you're in the same place. Obviously, things are happening. And I just think it's a great episode. I think it's The Lodger is a great episode, but I would say it's probably on par with that because there's not an awful lot happening in the episode. And with the story and the engine, whilst I love what it's doing, and it's still an 8 out of 10 to me, and I love the Afro going to Africa, the barber shop, the spider, I love, love, love that. I just wish in this middle section there was less, talking about people because I did not care about the other people in that barber. I couldn't even remember their names.
What were the
Uh,
names?
I don't know. I can't remember their names.
But
Um,
I'll tell you, bring you up another point, right? Another
yeah,
thing that I think two things that could have made the episode better.
yeah,
One thing is if the barber was actually a Nancy the man spider that he lied about. If he was a Nancy the man spider, episode would have been better because we know who he is, and he should have been a Nancy. I think it would have worked better to say I'm a Nancy, I'm controlling the whole place. That is what I think most of us probably thought before the episode came out. We thought that was the concept they were going for, but they didn't. And another thing what would have made it better is if Belinda actually went with the Doctor rather than staying in the TARDIS for like half the episode,
that
which
was just pointless, wasn't it?
I didn't get it. I didn't get. I'll let you go. Like, why are you not going with him? Because it's weird because Belinda talked about I think her like her culture as well, along with Shooty at the start of the episode.
Yeah, she
Um,
did.
and it didn't make sense to me for her to say how much they relate to each other than just to stay in the TARDIS. I didn't
There was
understand that.
there was a moment though that I thought was quite interesting. Um, and it's the bit where Belinda says, "Locate origin of why the doctor's acting up," and it points to the barbershop. And there's a point where the episode where it's showcasing her reaction of going through the public, and it's showcasing how uncomfortable she is. So I think it was just a case of she wants to go home, but she also respected the fact that probably Shooty just wanted to spend some time there as well.
Mm.
The doctor wanted to spend some time there. So I could get that as well. I just, it's one of just those episodes where I just wish it was a little bit more clear. I think that's where I think the issue is. It's not clear in certain aspects. It's so exposition heavy that the whole fugitive doctor aspect was just like a blink it and you miss it type thing. It's
Yeah,
so focused on telling stories. I tell you what gave me the nerve, the red, I wouldn't say red flags before going to the episode. It's still like, I'm not saying it's a bad episode. It's a really, really good episode overall. We'll talk about the things that we like as well. But what gave me the warning flags, if you say you will, that this episode might be very exposition heavy was they released a prequel to this story. Um and to me that's is this you saying you have to do your homework to understand the episode?
yeah. Not everyone would have watched that as well, because
Yeah, it's not even a watch, it's a
yeah,
read.
no, yeah. Read. No, but I read it. I don't know if you read it, um, but I read it right,
Hmm.
and I struggle with just like reading in general because I just get bored. It's like it's like one of those boring things, and it didn't really say much. I mean, it said stuff, but it just basically was saying that the Doctor and Omo were on this battle and load of fires. A bit like they said at the start, when Omo was talking before the sequence.
Yeah,
So I don't know if you had to read it, but I think yeah, it was one of those things that it's one of those things that makes me. That's what another really good thing about this episode is that I actually quite connected to Omo as a character, and I think that's something about this series. It's doing really well with the side characters. That you actually get more connected to them, and it has been a while since that's happened.
The best part of the episode to me was um is the cultural impact of this episode. I just love I love it where Doctor Who, considering also that, 6-year-olds will be watching this as well. I just love the fact that we're having episodes where it's exploring different cultures and understanding, like the bit where the the three men, or the two or three men, went to the daughter of the Anansi. I can't remember her name. Again, this is the issue of the episode, is I think there was just too many characters in it. Um, I love it where, when to say thank you, that you saved our lives, was they went straight down to the floor. I thought that was so beautiful, because that teaches kids there are different ways of saying thank you, and different ways of being kind. And I think that's such a beautiful, beautiful way of educating the viewers as well. Um, and I loved the scene where, overall, even though we had an episode about a huge spider, um, which was a bit wasteful, to be honest, that spider. Um,
It didn't
we'll
feature
talk,
enough, did it?
no, we'll talk about that spider in a sec. But I do love it where overall, the doctor won by just the power of kindness. And I love that, because that is who the Doctor is. The Doctor doesn't pick up a gun and point it at the enemy and say, I will defeat you, or something. It's not that. He or she is not that. The Doctor is someone that just is basically is a guidance to their foe, and say, look, what you're doing here is wrong. What you need to do instead is to do this. And just because you've lost doesn't mean you should sacrifice yourself. You could still be better. I love that. This is what happened in the episode. And
Hmm.
I love that, what really gets to me when I watched it again. Um, the actor who played the barber was awesome actor in this. I thought his performance was brilliant. And I loved how you could see his attitude and tone was shifted at the end of the episode, because he was on the ground and he was bawling in tears. And you could see Omar was, he reached out his hand. And to me, that was so inspiring, because that tells kids, just because your enemies, might want to push you down, that doesn't mean you should do that to them.
Hmm.
I thought that was so touching, that we need more of that. And not just in Doctor Who in general, just in TV shows, because it teaches so many youngsters about the power and impact of kindness. Um, I want to ask you a question about the episode.
Yeah.
You know the bit where the Doctor is loving life, enjoying being in Nigeria, being sociable with the community. Do you think that was cut too short?
It was a bit short, although when he's getting through, like to get to the
Mhm.
barber shop. Yeah, I feel like they could have done a bit longer with that, have a bit more heavier conversations. Um, yeah, I do. I don't think it. I do think in other places in the episode you could have had a few more minutes, like we said, in a less in the barber shop in the middle there.
Yeah, I just thought, a little fun fact, I don't know if you watched have you watched Doctor Who Unleashed about this episode?
Yeah, yeah, I did. Yeah, I did watch it. Yeah.
The shot where you see, it's a drone shot of the community where it's all busy, the market,
Hmm.
that is shot in Nigeria. They did get people over there just to shoot that drone shot, but it was just too expensive to have 200 people flown over to Nigeria. So they just built a set in Cardiff. But that shot, the opening establishing shot, is in Nigeria.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And I loved that. Um, but Yeah, what do you think were the highlights of the episode for you? Because obviously it's the weakest season for you, but obviously you said that before we started recording that I think you said it as well just now that this episode is still better than most episodes in season one. What makes it better than most episodes in season one?
I just feel like it's just because it's like it's more happening, or like it has a bit more enjoyment out of it than most in last series. And Shoot is much better in this series as well. Um, that's quite clear, and it's strange, really, because they were shot back to back, weren't they? So is it
Oh, yeah.
that's interesting that a lot of us think that Shooty's performances are much better in this series than the last one because he probably done some maybe episode in series two first than maybe in episode series one. So yeah, I mean, I think out of all of the last series, it's really close to certain episodes. I think it's on par with Rogue, in my opinion, because I quite like Rogue. It's on par.
Yeah,
I think Boom is just a bit better than this one. Um, I feel like it's better than Devil's Cord. It's better than Space Babies. Um, on, it depends if you like this episode, but I probably enjoy 73 Yards more than
I
it.
love I love
Um,
Sim.
Yeah, I love 73 yards. I like it more than that one. Dot and Bubble, no, it's miles better than double dot and Bubble. um, but yeah, I liked it. But there was the moments I liked. I liked when he flew out the shop like you mentioned because I saw
Oh,
that in the trailer. I did think it would be a bit longer outside. I thought something more was going to happen between that. But it wasn't. More or less, the shots we got of the spider were what we saw in the trailers. Um, like I think we saw it about three times. And the last bit, like I mentioned earlier, um, I like them parts, and actually like the start of the episode when they're in the TARDIS talking, and then because I think there was a lot missed of that last series. There was a lot. We have a lot of that this series, so it's good. It's good, and I do think at some point, regardless of what happens this series, whatever who's in the box next series, we need an episode like what Matt Smith one where he's in the TARDIS. I think the forgot what it's called, but we need a whole episode in the TARDIS, just in the TARDIS.
oh, I know what you're on about. Is it Amy
Uh,
Shaw?
no, no, Journey to the Center of the TARDIS is called.
Oh yeah.
So we need a different episode, but a similar episode where you just have it all in the set in the TARDIS the whole time. Because
There
with
is
this,
like a huge portion that's not being used, is there?
yeah, I reckon there's lots of hidden rooms that you could have in an episode. Yeah, I think we need an episode like that. But yeah, it's like it's interesting that like things can change when we watch the rest of the episodes. There's only three left at this point, so the Soaring Ninja might not be bottom, but it's quite likely to be bottom because of the finale. But we have to wait and see. But for me, there was more criticisms than things I liked in this episode, probably. Um, but yeah, I feel like stuff could have been analysed a bit more before release. Really. But yeah, it's an episode I won't rewatch 1,000 times. But I mean, I would now just to understand it. But it's not an episode I'll heavily go back to.
I agree with that because I think it's interesting because when us Doctor Who fans, when every episode comes out, we will watch that new episode like to death. We would just watch it so many times and we'd almost like forget last week as well. We'd move on from last week because that's old news. Last week's old news. This is the one we're watching now. So it'll be interesting to see how this episode will last in the long term as well. I watched Lucky Day on Saturday because obviously I was watching it with my mum and dad. They were having a bit of a catch up, so they didn't see Lucky Day yet. So I said to them, right, let's watch Lucky Day, and then we'll watch the story in the engine. I watched Lucky Day, and I'll tell you what, that's a brilliant episode. It's really good. And then I watched the story in the engine because you could sometimes feel from a casual, from casual viewer's perspective, when an episode maybe not working.
Yeah.
Um, I think this episode, I think it just had, how can I say this? There's too much talking. For an episode where you're telling stories, there's too much talking.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it bad for the series for a Doctor Light episode to be more liked than an episode that has got a lot of the Doctor in it?
Um, I wouldn't say so. No, it's not bad because that's just gone down to the quality of the writing. Um, I would say a Doctor Light episode is probably the hardest episode to write because for a show called Doctor Who, there isn't much of the Doctor. Um, I would say as a storyteller and a script writer myself, it probably added an opportunity for Pete Matai to tell a story engaging without the Doctor because it gives you an opportunity of how could they get away with, how could they, win this. And having the Doctor in there, just sprinkled across from the opening to 10 minutes in to then after that to the last 4 or 5 minutes of the episode. I think it was when he was in the episode, it was earned.
Mm.
Um, whereas this one, I think the writer of the story in the engine, don't get me wrong, for the most part, it was really good. I really like this episode. From the themes he was talking about, excuse me, from the themes, from the characters. Omo was just such a wonderful character. I loved Omo. Um, Um, it's one of those episodes where you have to pay attention because there are things you will miss because it is a episode where it doesn't really follow the show don't tell route. Even though they have a screen to basically say, look, as we're talking, this screen will interpret what you're saying, which is a question I'm going to go on to in a second with you. And I love the graphics, how they're explaining certain stories. I just wish that for other stories that they were shown as well. Like, for example, A Daughter of Anansi and Seeing the Fugitive Doctor. We're telling a story here about the chemistry between these two. Why can't why can't just the other characters just look onto the other side and just to see that the screen is still playing and the spider is moving because they're talking about these two chemistries? You would then see it and feel it. Whereas for this part of the episode, it's just describing what they were and how they felt during a different time, which does explore good themes because obviously when you don't see people for a long periods of time, they change over time and you change over time, and sometimes the friendship just doesn't work anymore. And that's fine. But with this one, they should have had that screen playing so then we could at least see the Jo Martin adventures. We're
Yeah.
not seeing that. And that's what's frustrating me because she's becoming more cameos of I was the fugitive back then. Okay, but I want to see the fugitive. You have a good opportunity here to play to get that screen going. See her adventures before Shooty Gatwa was. I thought that would be such a good opportunity, and it was just a bit wasteful, in my opinion. But nonetheless, I want this writer to continue writing for Doctor Who. I think this is a great first impression for him of what he can do for Doctor Who. And especially I saw a review, um, I think was it on TikTok, was his name Tyson? He does he sometimes comes in for Doctor Who social media marketing. He makes the videos like first time watchers. I love his content. Um, and he did the review and he made a really good point. And this point was he was getting concerned that this for the first time of having a black doctor, that all that we would focus on is the negativity of racism. And he was so relieved and he was so happy to report that, this time this episode is about showcasing the positive, side of the community and understanding that it's not all doom and gloom because there are, in Nigeria, as the doctor stated, he felt safe and he felt like it was normal. He felt like he was accepted. And I really agreed with him because it showed a huge different side to our first Black Doctor,
Yeah.
and I loved that. I loved it. So I went off on I spoke so much about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it was good that it was identified. Um, which is really confusing with the future of Doctor. It really confuses me as much as the Barb who he was, because we see him like they met, didn't they? So what? So is that what happened in the flux, that the Doctor lost all their memories of who the future of Doctor was? Is that what happened? So that's why the Doctor doesn't even remember who he is.
Yeah, like I can't remember Flux much because it's not a good season. But the Doctor, from what I can remember, now I need to go back and watch Flux just to understand now that Joe Martin's appearance is becoming a lot more important, and we have theories over this as well that we'll go into in a minute, which I'm looking forward to giving my theory as well. But the Doctor can't remember the fugitive life. And that's the whole point of the fob watch, because it showcases all of the memories. But she decides maybe one day and drops the fob watch in the TARDIS.
Okay, so that's what the memories were. The memories of the fugitive life that the Doctor doesn't want to remember.
All the stuff with the division. Yeah.
So this would make a lot of sense then. Now, so is the future of Doctor just making a cameo there? Which obviously they were when in the point of view of Anansi's daughter, in the point of view of that character, they would have seen the Doctor, the 15th Doctor, say that, and we're just seeing it in the context of the future of Doctor, just because it's the future of Doctor saying that. So,
Yeah.
which would make sense. So, if the future Doctor did ever get a spin-off, they have to have this story of Anansi now, going to see Anansi, because I don't see in the actual show them covering that.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think that with the fugitive Doctor, if let's say, obviously, we're currently living in a time where season three hasn't been announced yet. We're not saying it hasn't been commissioned, because it probably has at this point. It's just not being confirmed. Um, I do think that if they were to continue with the Disney deal and have a second deal, like we got to viewers have also got to remember, Disney's not going to stay with Doctor Who, forever. It's not going to do what BBC does and have like multiple seasons. It'll probably have, one or two, deals, and they will probably end their deals soon, in the future. Like it will have an end point, and
Mm.
then have to think about where they will go for another, partnership. Um, I just want to make that clear to the viewers. Um, but if they do have a second deal, I think their second spin-off should definitely be the Fugitive Doctor Adventures, because I want to learn more about the Fugitive Doctor. I want to understand why, she's part of all the posters with the other doctors, and what makes her, earn the title of, even though it's the Fugitive Doctor, but nonetheless, the Doctor. Um, I want to learn more about her because she's such, a fascinating character, what, was. And I think it would be interesting to have maybe even not just 8 episodes or 10 episodes, just 6 episodes. 6 episodes, an hour long, each different adventures, just exploring the world of the Fugitive Doctor, and maybe having like a little season arc going on. But just something as simple as that, where you get more time with the Fugitive Doctor than just little silly little cameos, because I think these cameos are getting a little bit silly.
Yeah, because every time it's been except from the fugitive or the Jadoon when she was in the whole episode. After that, I think she was on the Timeless Children, and it's just cameos after cameos after cameos. In every series since her appearance, she's been in it for a cameo.
Yeah.
And surely now, because what she said in the last episode, she's basically claiming the story isn't finished yet. Hopefully, it's finished one day. It's so surely that means that we're going to see her again. They can't just drop that hint and that's it. So what? Because the Doctor in the finale is going to probably learn more about the past. So maybe that's the memories, the lost memories that we may find out about. But what does concern me about that is that you're just adding another thing that was unnecessary. We didn't have to know. We didn't have to go down this line right now. We because if we think about it, we need to find out who Ruby is. We need. There's so many questions we still don't know. We don't know who Miss Flood is. We don't know. They're going down this Ruby storyline again. Belinda. There's so many questions right now, and like Toolmaker's Tooth. So if it's relevant to what they're trying to go towards and it all fits in, do it. But just don't do something for the sake of it because you feel sorry for what's happened in the past and they just want to continue it. Which I think Russell has done quite well, especially Wildly Young. There was a nice little mention about it um, in the giggle as well. But yeah, I feel like what they could do is if, let's say, if the Reality War is regeneration, if I'm saying if, what they could do is that they could just make Jo Martin the 16th Doctor. And what they could do with this is have their all old memories back and although they've been a past Doctor, we live those events that was then as the 16th incarnation.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. So there's a pro to that and there's a con to that. So the pro to that is that will give the Doctor, the 16th Doctor, aka the Fugitive Doctor, so much more to do. And it's not like a Star Wars thing where you're going to the prequels and, exploring more, which I think Star Wars is, stuck. There's too stuck in the past. Um, and what Doctor Who is so good at is it's embodying the past but making it present to the future. Um, and I like that. I think the con to that is that I think it'll be too much of a rehash of what they did with the 14th Doctor, having an old face back. But then yet again, I like to point this out as well. It's not like for casual viewers, they're going to understand Jo Martin's Fugitive Doctor. They'll just see that as a brand new Doctor.
Yeah.
So
Well, they could go down that line. Just say it's a new Doctor.
if you're not a die-hard Doctor Who fan like we are, and you've only watched 4 or 5 episodes, you'll see Jo Martin as your new Doctor. And I think that's brilliant. And then you could say to them, actually, well, if you go back to this series, you'll understand that actually she was there. And they'll be like, oh my God, I have to watch this.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a cool move for them to do. Um, I, however, think if I was just to have a personal point, I think if it's a regen, if it is a regeneration episode, this finale, they're hiding it very well. Um, and I think that, obviously some YouTubers will say, well, they're not because it's leaked everywhere. Well, no, but it's a leak. It's not like rumors, it's a leak. Like not all leaks are going to be true. You could see the Doctor turns into a pineapple and that's a leak. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, they were like, here we go.
Yeah, like
Here
it's
we
just
go.
one of those things where you could literally just say like you could say anything on the internet and you could say it's a leak. And I don't believe them anymore. I do think, however, if it is a regeneration episode, it'd be such a shame if it is, because I think Shooty deserves, considering he has 8 episodes, he deserves at least one more season.
He needs a Dalek story.
He does. Oh my God, we have gone through an era, without a Cyberman, without a Dalek. They've been mentioned, but we haven't seen them. I would like to see at least two of them pop up before he goes.
And he wanted to face them as well. He wanted to face the Daleks.
I do love this episode how they referenced quite a lot of villains here. You said Dalek, Cyberman, Weeping Angels, and Ice Warriors as well. Ice Warriors haven't had a shout out in a little while.
Yeah, I do like the Earth Warriors.
I
Um,
like that.
I do have a no, but that would make sense if it is regeneration though, because they would have filmed that all back to back. And if they didn't, it might have been one of the reshoots last year. Um, but I would love it though. As much as I would be really sad, I would be really sad if Shooty went because like today, especially today, like they're really boosting it, aren't they? They're really talking about it. They're saying this finale is going to be one of the best ever. Um,
They say
and
that every finale, though, don't they?
yeah, they say it, but they didn't last year, did they? They didn't say the wordings that they're saying about this year.
They didn't. No,
They're saying, and they never said it 3 weeks in advance either.
I. It's yeah. That's because Russell T Davies, like for the viewers who are watching this in the in the future, far future, they today as we're recording, Russell T Davies and the Doctor Who team have announced that this episode of Reality War would be a simultaneous release. So at the cinema, BBC One, BBC iPlayer, Disney Plus, they're all releasing at the same time. So, and they didn't do this for Empire of Death. So something big's going on. Whether it's Mrs. Flood, whether it's a regeneration, I don't think it will be a regeneration because I think I personally I think Ncuti Gatwa will be here at least for one more season. Um, but I do think that something big is coming, and whether that's a story or a character, I think something's happening in this episode that no one is talking about yet. I've got a theory. Can I talk about it?
Yeah, talk about it.
Okay, so I was a little bit late to this, I have to say, and even Mason was like, "You've only just realized this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a bit slow." So, in the story in the engine, when Belinda is looking for the barber, she sees on the other side of basically where she is a little girl. It's a little girl just standing, laughing, and as soon as she looks away, it goes back, she's gone. Initially, I thought she does look a little bit like Captain Poppy. And then obviously I didn't notice, but in the credits, it is Captain Poppy. Now, I've got a theory on this. So, Captain Poppy has made her return. She has made her return like the fugitive doctor. I would just love it if she just makes a cameo in it each season and she's just growing up. Um, but but it makes me excited when I talk about this, but I'm gonna have the lure of the theories today. Lure is so good with the theories. I'm gonna have the theory. I think this is relating back to the snowflakes because the snowflakes just happened randomly at each point of the episode. And each point, it's not to do with necessarily Ruby because the first time we see it is in Space Babies, which is literally why we're going back to Captain Poppy again. In Space Babies, they were talking about that, the doctor's memory kept changing when Ruby was abandoned by her mum. And then all of a sudden it started snowing. Um, and the doctor even made a point saying, in all of time and space, I have never seen this before. And it happened again in episode 2, it happened again in episode 3, and it happened again in episode 7, and it happened again in episode 8. But what people are overlooking is that people think that's the end of that story then of the snowflakes. Nuh-uh, it's not. The one thing that they're forgetting is that the very last shot was Mrs. Flood on the rooftop, saying the story ends in absolute terror. Night, night. If you look, it's snowing again. So Mrs. Flood is clearly controlling this. Now, Captain Poppy just being there randomly and then disappearing again, to me, is showing that reality is being affected and times are being affected as well.
Yeah,
Because Captain Poppy is a lot older here. Because the last time we saw Captain Poppy, she was in a
Pram.
yeah, she was in a pram. Um, but this time round, she's not. She's standing up. What do you think about it?
I I think Captain Poppy. I think I didn't think of that though. What you just said. I thought of something different. I did. Um, I feel like Captain Poppy will probably pop up again for in this series. If it's the Interstellar Song Contest or if it's actually the finale, I feel like if we go back to Space Babies, I know some of us may not want to, but in that episode, if you remember that Captain Poppy said she don't have a mum or dad. She said she don't have a mum and dad, and she is the last baby to actually be on that ship, if we remember. So Captain Poppy was the last member of the baby clan, if we call it a baby clan, on Space Babies. So that screams to me, hang on a minute. There's two scenarios this could be. There's three actually scenarios. One scenario is we go to the story engine. Belinda's the only one who saw Poppy, and Poppy waved at her. And Belinda is always so cryptic. She's like she can like how did she know how did Belinda know in that episode what could happen if the engine or would explode? How does she know that? So it springs to me that what if Captain Poppy is Belinda, just an older version?
They do make reference as well in the Robot Revolution that obviously Monday Flynn is pretty much exactly the same as Belinda Chandra. It wouldn't surprise me if they go into because they explored that into the future. It wouldn't surprise me if they're doing like a multiverse thing where it's like different versions of Belinda.
Hmm.
And it would explain how Belinda knew what the TARDIS was called, because obviously Captain Poppy would have at least heard the name TARDIS. It would explain a lot. Um, what I don't want to happen is clearly Russell had thought of this as for 2 seasons, one story. What I don't want it to happen is the reality was going to be like an Empire of Death, and it's just rehashing what I did last year. I want some form of conclusion because I've given season one's finale some slack. No, I cut it some slack, sorry. I like it I like it more than most people. Um, but that's because I know Russell has planned this out for it to continue on to season two, excuse me. If this doesn't, if there is not a satisfying conclusion, Russell, you're going to be in huge, huge trouble with the fan base, and you will lose a lot of trust. Um,
It has to be
and
good. You can't fail two times on the trot.
it
It has to be good.
because I don't view season one's finale as the finale. I view it as the midpoint between season one and two. If this is just like Empire of Death, I would be so disappointed. I'll be disappointed more than in Russell because I know he's a good writer. He's a fantastic writer. He's done 4 seasons of New Who. He's doing the Disney era. He's written some fab stuff, more than what Stephen Moffat could do and what Chibnall can do. He shows he's the king of Doctor Who. You gotta show us that you're the king. Do you get what I mean? And at the
Yeah.
moment, he's showing the baby steps of him towards being a king. I'm like,
Like
no,
so that was yeah, I completely agree. But one other concept I've got, what if could we just get the future of Doctor appearance? What if Captain Poppy is the future of Doctor when they'll be really young? Um, what if that's who Captain Poppy is in it? Because if they're delving into the Doctor's past, maybe that's who that is.
you know what? There's a possibility.
Yeah,
A possibility.
yeah.
I don't know who Belinda is. No one does, except the YouTubers. Um, but I do think that Ruby has a real big importance here, as well. Like what this episode shows is that it's connecting to what's going to happen in the last 3 episodes. It's talking about what this season has done so well, I think, was it's talked about ethnicity and race and racism with Lux. There's a bit in the episode where I don't think it's been talked about as often, but it's a bit in the episode where when he lands in 1952, he basically looks at his hand and realizes it's not a good time actually to be here. Maybe nighttime's the best time. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
That is such a good moment that people aren't talking about because that's a subtle way of he's not saying, "Oh yeah, I'm black. I need to be careful." He didn't say it. He just showed it. Do you get what I mean? All he did was maybe it's for the best. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. I
And
think.
I,
Oh, yeah.
what I think is as well with this theory is we spoke it's spoken about race, it's spoken about racism, it's spoken about ethnicity. Um, Obviously, in terms of an intergalactic, an alien from Gallifrey, ethnicity also relates to that as well because it's you're not human, you're a different alien. Um, if in you know in, for humans for humankind, ethnicity is different backgrounds and different skin color, of course. In terms on Doctor Who, with aliens and all that, that's ethnicity as well, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
It's still, different people, but just living in different places around the galaxy as well. I do think that's probably, I might be wrong on this, and he just wanted to explore this really important subject, but that could also lean into maybe that Mrs. Flood is a Time Lord.
Mm. So let's talk about Miss Flood. Our last few theories before potentially knowing who she is this weekend. We might not know this weekend, but we'll see. We'll see. So I've got a wild theory now. I've got a wild theory
I want to hear this wild fury.
about Miss Flood.
What's this wild fury, Mason? Tell me.
It's not going to be good if this happens.
Don't tell me, man.
So
Tell me.
Miss Flood is the Doctor.
Okay. What? Why is that? Where's the proof?
The doc Miss Flood always goes everywhere where the Doctor's gone. Imagine it seems Miss Flood knows what a TARDIS is, saying it's big, saying, "Have you seen a TARDIS before?" What's this obsession with the TARDIS? Why does it keep getting mentioned? So, so definitely she has to have a TARDIS. So, I do think she's that Time Lord, even the Doctor. We're talking about realities, right? Maybe the Miss Flood is a Doctor from a different reality where she is a Doctor. Because no one ever talks about different versions of the Doctor from a different timeline, from a different reality. So why is there only one set of the one Time Lord, the Doctor? Why is there multiple Doctors around the universe that have their own separate timelines? So in another universe you can have the 56th Doctor, in another universe you can have the 23rd Doctor now. So, and I don't, not the Valyard. I don't think she's the Valyard, because that's what an evil Doctor is. I feel like she's just the Doctor in her own universe, and she's playing us. So she's either that or she's the Rani.
She's
Um,
the Vanguard. Confirmed. Confirmed right
yeah,
here.
yeah. I mean, the Rani is the obvious choice, and I don't want it to be the Rani because the Rani is the only one that everyone ever talks about. So if she is the Rani, I will be a bit disappointed because that's the one that's going around. But yeah, if it makes sense for the story, fair enough. But I just want her reveal to be really good. I mean, like the Sutek reveal was good, and if it's along those lines, better. It's gonna be good. But yeah, I don't think Miss Flood's Kronos. I wouldn't be against it, but I don't see the only evidence is that Kronos was a girl who's a bit older lady. That's the only evidence, and about the flood is a Bolivian. So yeah,
Yeah,
but
that.
what will be interesting, I don't know if you thought about this too. The Doctor's met Mrs. Flood, Ruby's met Mrs. Flood, and Belinda has met Mrs. Flood. So they've all met Mrs. Flood, right? And not at the same time. So what's your opinion on this? So let's say Miss Flood gets revealed in the Interstellar Song Contest. Does Miss Flood, does Ruby, no, no, not Ruby, sorry, does Belinda and the Doctor, do you think they'll both recognise Miss Flood?
Well, that's the thing. We're 3 episodes in, and if Russell T Davies is saying that, Mrs. Flood will be revealed in this season, there's a concern for me because if, let's say, Mrs. Flood is revealed in the Interstellar Song Contest, the Doctor hasn't met Mrs. Flood since the Church on Ruby Road. And to me, I think I don't know how Russell's going to approach this because obviously, if Mrs. Flood is just going to be a another cameo in the Interstellar Song Contest, I don't know how that's even going to be possible because next week's Wish World, so there's got to be some tie-in, and I don't know, where because it seems as though where the Doctor is going to be and Belinda are going to be watching, they're going to be watching at the back up high and just watching. So I don't know where, and obviously it's confirmed. I don't know if you've seen the trailer where Graham Norton's voicing over, which I just think is brilliant.
Hmm.
Um, it's confirmed that it's 3 trillion audience members. So he's gonna have a good time finding Mrs. Flood there. Um, so I do think it'll be interesting to see how Mrs. Flood is going to be revealed. If
But all those audience members, I think, are going to go.
yeah, I because I think Russell even stated that you think you know this episode, but when you start to watch it, it actually turns. So
Yeah.
I do think that it wouldn't it be amazing if, because obviously Ryland's in this episode, wouldn't it be amazing if Mrs. Flood was just one of the singers and she started singing a song to 3 trillion people and the Doctor and Belinda were like, I know her. And they both turned, it's like, how do you know her? And then that's when they start doing things. Because obviously, I just want what this era has given me is goosebump reveals.
Yeah.
Done so well with the reveals, in terms on who about the Midnight Entity and about Sutek. They've done so well with that. What do you think? How do you think her reveal is going to be?
It has to be on the stage, doesn't it? It'd be a waste if it wasn't. Like, it depends. It depends how that reveal's gonna happen. Um, I hope it is on the stage. I do think it's really interesting because we have no idea who she is. She could be anyone. So I reckon whoever the monsters are of this episode. I mean, I've always said it's the Gods of Ragnarok, but I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I could be wrong with that. Because I think there's two people with horns. I don't know if there's a third person. If there's a third person, that might be true. Unless Miss Flood is the God of Ragnarok. um, but I don't think that is the case. But I'd be funny if that was the case. But I don't know. With her, with her reveal, I feel like it can't. When do you think that would be if it is the Interstellar Song Contest? Do you think that'll be right at the end of the episode, or do you think that'll be halfway in?
Well, I have a theory that it's going to be the last 3 episodes is going to be 3 parts, and I think that halfway through this episode, it's going to be revealed. So I think it's actually going to take a huge turn, and I think the reason why it's going to be, this episode is going to be between actual Eurovision is because they probably want the audience to be like, oh my God, they want to have that casual audience who probably didn't tune in for Doctor Who are going to watch it and think, oh, that's Anita Dobson. Oh my God, Anita Dobson's this person? Do you get what I mean?
Oh, I've just thought of something really cool.
Yeah. Give me 1 second, Mason. Hold off for apologies about that, Mason. Carry on.
Sorry. Um, so the thing I found really cool, what would be really cool, imagine if Graham Norton's just sort of on the commentary the whole entire episode, and when Miss Flood is revealed, Graham Norton's just commentating on it. So he's like, "Oh my God, what's going on? Well, what's happening? I can't believe it." I could just imagine that because he'll still be there.
That would be incredible. And what they usually do in every year when Graham Norton's doing the narration, um, they always have a thank you moment and they have the camera pointing at Graham Norton. Imagine if they just kill off Graham Norton like what they did in the actual Graham Norton show of the Dalek graphic killing him off. I think that'd be so cool because he's known for ruining Doctor Who episodes.
Yeah, he is. But yeah, there's so many different ways to go. But I will be honest, the next time trailer from After the Store in the Engine didn't look great. From I don't know what you thought of it, but I thought the one they released on the Doctor Who page was much better. But the one at the end of the Store in the Engine, I didn't think much on it.
No, I think what they're trying to do is they clearly know that this episode is set for the casual audience, and they're trying to probably for this particular episode, not like they're desperate or anything, but I think what they're trying to do with this episode is make it a Eurovision style type thing, because obviously Eurovision is happening right now. Oh, James is gone to Eurovision now.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's so important that this episode probably just leans into that a little bit. And then once the episode actually comes out, it, starts off with that for probably like the first 10, 15 minutes. But then, as we progress, it becomes very, very serious. There are shots there Ryan looks like he's hiding somewhere on stage. So I don't know what's going to happen because it looks like there's a bit in the episode where the doctor's flying. So I don't know quite know what's happening there. The only thing is that if Mrs. Flood is revealed in this episode, isn't there an actor that Russell T Davies personally announced because he used to work with him and he plays a villain in this episode?
Yeah, I think that yeah, that is a villain. Yeah, he's supposed to be the villain in it.
And he's wearing like this devilish horn type thing on his head. So I don't know what that's for. Now, Russell T Davies has also stated as well that there is Ruby is trapped, Belinda, the Doctor is doomed, and the unholy Trinity reigns supreme. So, who is the unholy Trinity for you?
I think it could either go three ways. It could either be the obvious, Comrade, Miss Flood, and whoever the other person's going to be, who's probably the big bad of the series. Um, you could either go Rassilon, Omega, and the person who got um, Teto. Like that person who got killed off in Flux. They could bring that one back. It could either be you could have Belinda in that one, or the Doctor, Belinda, and Ruby. Imagine them three as on Holy Trinity. But it could go anyway. I feel like it's going to be three gods though. I feel like it's going to be three gods being at the battle against each other. And that's the main concept of it. But when it said Ruby is trapped, that screams the trickster there, saying it's tricked Ruby and Belinda's trapped because it's part of this trap. So I do think whoever Belinda is, she's been made to trick the Doctor all this time. The reason they can't get back to Earth because she's not really there. Belinda's not real. We've got a clock. Remember the first time we saw Belinda, the first person she saw say goodbye to was Miss Flood, and like Miss Flood knew what was happening at that point in the robot revolution. Miss Flood knew where to be at that time. Um, yeah, I feel like. But who do you think who do you think is going to be like the unholy trinity?
Okay, so we know one of them is going to be Mrs. Flood. I think when it comes to Conrad, I think Conrad it will be the obvious choice because obviously Conrad was talking to Mrs. Flood and she was like, "Oh, I'm the governor and it's your lucky day," and all that. I think Conrad's going to be the type of guy where obviously it's set with realities and he's clearly delusional, the character, because he doesn't really know what's real and what's not real. I think he'll be the type of character where once he realizes what's real, that Mrs. Flood is a villain and the Doctor's a hero. I think he's going to be the type of character where it probably is a bit too late for him to be saved.
Yeah,
Um, I think he'll probably be that type of character, or it'll be Mrs. Flood, Conrad. Hear me out on this when I say this. Belinda. When I say this, this is a huge stretch, and I don't even think this is probably going to even happen. But have we even had any shots of Belinda in the finale?
did did you see that part? I don't know if this was the last episode, but I swear I saw Belinda go through this like portal thing. So I don't know if that was actually a shot in the trailer from the story in the engine when they're exiting the barbershop, or is that in the finale? Because I swear the Doctor's in some sort of dome kind of thing as well.
Is that where he's wearing this really nice looking suit?
Yeah, he's wearing that. Um,
It could be that. It could be maybe that obviously it's about reality. So maybe it could be that, the three Holy Trinity could be, by the way, Russell has nailed it when it comes to naming the characters. Um, I think that the Holy Trinity is going to be it's going to be gods, obviously, but I think maybe now. Theoretically, this story is started since the Star Beast. Who's the boss?
we don't know.
We don't know. So it could be Mrs. Flood, or it could be someone else. That could be the third member.
What about the toy maker?
I would love for it if he returned.
I don't think it's the boss, but because he mentioned the boss, I think the one who waits is Miss Flood, not Sutek.
Yeah.
And I also think because when they were in if you read like what they said on the BBC website earlier today, they was talking about the underworld, I think, or where all the I think a pantheon is.
I didn't read that,
Uh,
no.
So what it said was let me just read it. Um, so what it said was so Russell T Davies said, "The Doctor is doomed, Belinda is lost, Ruby is trapped, Unit is powerless, the unholy trinity rules supreme, and the underverse is rising." So when it says underverse, it just reminds me of what the Doctor said to Donna when explaining the Toy Maker. So the Doctor described the Toy Maker as from a place called the Under Universe. So it just the similar words, they're different, but maybe it's the same meaning. So maybe that's where all the Pantheon gods are, and
You might be
that's
right in that.
that's how it comes. So maybe the Toy Maker it could be in it. It's a possibility for the Toy Maker to be there. But not so. It could be a villain as well, but I do think it's either Miss Flood's the boss or someone higher up than Miss Flood is the boss.
That would make so much sense because obviously in the original um episode with the toy maker, obviously the episode was called the Celestial Toy Maker, and obviously the word celestial means is a form of racism, so we're not going to really refer to that. We're just going to talk about the toy makers episode um in the 60s, and he clearly states in that episode that the TARDIS fell into a pocket universe, or it fell somewhere. and that's where he met the toy maker. It would make so much sense if the pantheon of gods, it is literally, I'm not joking, in terms of an intergalactic interpretation of the Bible, it is literally like talking about hell rising up above.
Yeah.
It is literally like talking about that. And I think that is such a cool way of bringing like the pantheon in with Maestro, the god of music, and Toymaker, the god of games. Um, Now, I'm going to probably say probably an opinion, an unpopular opinion. But obviously, you and Lua and Josh and James are convinced that Trix is going to have a role. I think he will, but I think they're saving him for season 3. I think they're saving him for probably just a future season. Um, I don't think the Trickster's going to be in this season purely because I think we need just a little bit more teasing going on. I could be wrong. It could be Mrs. Flood. It would be amazing. I think. Wouldn't it be cool if it is Mrs. Flood? But what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it could be Mrs. Flood, but don't know. We'll have to wait and see, won't we?
Wouldn't
Yeah.
that though? I think the one thing that would be so cool if they did. Do you remember before Empire of Death released? It was between Legend of Ruby Sunday and the Empire of Death. They had a Tales of the TARDIS episode dedicated to the pyramids of Mars.
Yeah, I think they shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I think what they could do is if they are going to have the trickster to be the villain, and it's all revealed that he's the trickster all along, Tales of the TARDIS having an episode on Sarah Jane would be so cool, and having Luke and um Rani in there again would be so cool.
That'd be brilliant. I'd love that if they did that because it was cool. Um, I did watch it, Pyramids of Mars, before I watched the finale.
I It would be so cool because obviously those episodes are in 2 parts, so they would have to have that episode of the trickster. I think it's the one with Sarah Jane's friend is like the first trickster episode.
Mm.
Um, it'll either be the first one like that. I think realistically, it's probably going to be if they would have to reintroduce the trickster again. I think it would be the one where what happened to Sarah Jane Smith. I think it has to be that episode because it's about reality changing. It's about telling a different timeline of events when one thing doesn't happen. Um, it wouldn't be the wedding of River Song because I think that's just telling a little bit of a different story. Um,
I think if
but
anything, it would be similar to what the lines they were going to go down with Sky, wanting Sky was going to be this like the trickster's daughter or something like that, or so, like kid. So I think they could go down those sort of lines with maybe Ruby.
yeah, I think if it is Sky as Mrs. Flood, that wouldn't that be cool? Just to have some interconnective there, like a continuing story, but I don't think that's happening.
No, I think Mrs. Flood. Do you think Mrs. Flood's true form is what she looks like, or do you think Miss Flood actually looks like someone completely different?
You made a really good point on that because obviously they've done when it comes to reveals, they've had at least had some visual representation in there as well, haven't they? And with let's say Harriet Arbinger, that character from The Legend of Ruby Sunday, that character had a complete makeover change, didn't she?
Yeah,
Uh, and I loved that because it made it so much more scary.
like
Uh,
Mel as well.
yeah, I think mm, yes, but I think it'll probably be like a makeover instead of a different it's not like gonna be like Mrs. Fred's gonna go, "Hello, Doctor, I'm the trickster." And then all of a sudden she changes into the trickster and like low voice and the blah type thing's gonna happen. Because I think that'd just be I think if that happened, people would think, so Anita Dobson was basically just a cover up if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do think Anita Dobson has to stay the way she looks.
I think so. So if anything, Anita Dobson would have to be, because I sent on our little chat that that I was just reading. I'm currently writing my own script, Winter's Love, and in doing so, I was just gaining some inspiration in terms of like how t characters are written in Doctor Who and all that. So I just picked a random one. I picked Empire of Death, and I thought, what, let's go all the way to the bit where Mrs. Flood talks to Cherry. And there were bits that picked out where, when she was saying, considering that this week might be the episode where she's revealed, let's read the bit where she was talking to Cherry, and she was basically saying, let's read it out again because I still got it. And basically, she was saying, if I still have it actually,
I've got
um,
it. I've got it here.
have
Um,
you, if you read it out, that'd be great.
yeah. So Miss Flood says, "Do you pray, Cherry? Do you believe in the power of prayer?" And that line alone remind like the unholy trinity. Praying, what God to pray? So I most certainly do. Cherry says, and then Miss Flood says, "Then tell your Maker that I swear in death I will come to storm down his gates of gold and seize his kingdom in my true name." And Cherry says, What name? What are you talking about? Who are you?" "I'm sorry, you tiny little woman. I'm sorry it ends like this. I had such plans."
So I have theories as well on this because obviously, if Anita Dobson is the big baddie, she is basically the Thanos of this 2 seasons. Which, by the way, in the story of the engine, there's some Marvel references, which I thought were quite cool.
Yeah, but
Um,
Endgame.
yeah. And to me, there's only one thing I would say is clearly Sutek has at least some dominance to whoever Mrs. Flood is, because Mrs. Flood said, I had plans, but hey ho, it's not happening. So unless it was all meant to happen, because even in Empire of Death, she's so relieved. Oh my God, that clever boy. Do you get what I mean? Like clearly she has this, she might be all powerful, but clearly not that powerful where she couldn't continue her plan. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I think what she was stating was nothing to do with Sutek, I think. I don't think anything was to do with Sutek, what she was saying. Um, like now,
Well,
maybe at the time might have thought about it, it was talking about Sutek. But I find it really weird that why is Miss Flood telling Sherry to say tell your maker?
that was what I was saying because it's very religious as well, isn't it? Like it's leaning, sorry, onto the gods more in a more religious aspect. And I find that really interesting because when it says tell your maker that I will come down, I'll storm down his gates in my true name or something. To me, it's really leaning onto the religious aspects of whoever Mrs. Flood is, and whoever Mrs. Flood is really has you know, some strong plans for the Doctor because I wasn't believing that, she was um wearing companions' costumes throughout. I thought that was just a weird coincidence. Now, after having the Hoovian scene with in Lux, I would not be surprised if Mrs. Flood ends up some, because I remember in the Radio Times, I think, or yeah, Radio Times, they said in their I don't know who it was, but somebody basically reviewed the episode and said this episode showcases Mrs. Flood's um plans for the real world. And I couldn't help but think, okay, real world. And we get that shot of Mel like looking around and things were just dismantling and turning into like something like purple. I don't know what's happening. It's like being demolished.
Hmm.
So something's going on, and I think that's why there's a cinema screening over this.
Yeah, I think so too. Because I feel like when she was saying that to Cherry, I thought, is Cherry someone now? is she saying this because Cherry is someone else, or like she could be someone cryptic?
That's why she can't have a cup of tea, because once she has a cup of tea, it's all revealed.
Yeah, that's it. But I feel like this line alone can really implement the unholy trinity to be this kind of trinity that are very religious. It could go down the line a little bit what they're going for in um Joy to the World at the end when it was actually they were on Bethlehem right at the end.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a leak as well. If I don't know if you knew that before, but a lot of people say, "Oh, it's a leak that it maybe you're going to Bethlehem right at the end." So this is the problem about it all.
It's the problem. I do think that regardless of what you think of Empire of Death, I do think a large fault of, it not meeting expectations because people were theorizing and focusing too much on leaks. And I think these YouTubers need to just shut up. They need to stop making these videos about leaks. It's not doing you any favor whatsoever. Or if these leaks don't come true, your video is going to be severely outdated.
Yeah,
And if they do come true, then great, amazing. But it's not always going to be the case. And stop ruining it for others. That's all I say to these YouTubers. Stop ruining it for others.
yeah, yeah,
Not everyone's here to watch your videos to focus on the leaks. They'll just see that as, oh, I want to watch your video, and then you just outright just spoil it. It's not nice. That's why I stay away from them now.
yeah, yeah.
But
Um, but but last thoughts then. Is there any last thoughts that you have on anything, maybe to do with like Miss Flood or Interstellar Song Contest?
um, I think when it comes to my last thoughts on this is that whilst the story in the engine could have been better in terms of dialogue, um, I'm really appreciating that this season has given us a true, representation of what Doctor Who is all about. And I was talking to my dad about this, and he said to me, "This is classic Who." And when I said, "What do you mean by that?" And he said to me, it's giving you the frights. It's giving you that feeling of I want to watch it, but behind the sofa, but I still want to watch it. And I think this season has given us that. Like we've had a cartoon monster pop out of the screen. We've had the Midnight Entity back. We've had flesh eating monsters called the Shriek. We've now had a huge spider. Like, where was this in season one? And
Yeah,
I have I have to be honest, like I'm just a little concerned because I want this to really end off on a high for season two. So if the Intergalactic Song Contest turns out to be a huge, huge win for them, not in viewerships, like I'm not talking about that. They're irrelevant at this point.
it has to be good.
It just has to be good. Like for the people that are watching between I don't know what's playing. I think it's the football as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
Uh, the football and Eurovision. It's literally playing in between. So you've got a whole 47 minutes there of free time before Eurovision. If people are saying, "Oh, I love that. That was great," and then they go into Eurovision, and bear in mind, Shooty Catwa is also, being on in Eurovision itself as well. It just has to be good. I want the episode to be good.
so,
And
so, do you predict that these next three episodes will not fall at the bottom of the list rankings? Because at the moment, Story Engine's there. So, do you think or predict that the next three episodes will be at least higher than the Story in the Engine, or do you think they could potentially drop below it?
so the one thing I was concerned about before going into the season was the writers being revealed. Now, I love the fact that it's diverse range of writers. That's brilliant. But what I was more concerned about was experience. Um, Pete McTighe, I wasn't actually that worried about because I know he's had experience on Doctor Who already. Um, And it just shows that, with the right showrunner and the right executive producer, he could produce something really good. Um, and the writer of the story in the engine. Now, I don't know this for sure, um, but I know he's more focused on plays because he's done a show about the barbershop
Mm.
play. That's how he sort of brought it into Doctor Who. But he's also done poems as well. Now, I'm not sure. I could be wrong on this, but I don't think aside Doctor Who, he's done that many scripts before, filmed scripts. I think he even stated in Doctor Who Unleashed it was his first set he was on, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Juno Dawson, I have a lot of faith that she's going to produce something really good. Not to say that the other two didn't. They produced wonderful stories, and I really like them. Um, but Juno Dawson, I have a lot more confidence in because I know Juno Dawson has been part of the Doctor Who um community in terms on the official Doctor Who YouTube channel and has done novelizations for Doctor Who as well. That like I gave it away to my local primary school now, but I actually owned a 13th Doctor book and it said written by Juno Dawson. I thought, oh my God, she's written so many Doctor Who episodes. I have no faith. No faith. Sorry. I have faith that this episode is going to be a banger. So I have huge faith in Juno Dawson that she's going to produce something really good. And a little fun fact, I don't know if you've seen it about, but Rylan was asked a question at the BAFTA about his role in Doctor Who.
Oh yeah,
And
I saw it. Yeah, he said he had a 92-page script or something.
92-page script, and he's in it a lot. So 92 pages is an awful lot. So whatever this episode is, because I think Empire of Death was only like 63 pages. So whatever this episode is, it's clearly got something to say.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. We come back next week and we love it.
Yeah.
We love it. But yeah, great work, Jack. Your first episode on your own. Um,
Woo!
on the podcast. Next week we hope to be brought. Hopefully we'll have a few more of us, especially as it will be the last one before the finale. So come back next week for a really good like penultimate podcast episode of this series rankings. Because when we come back after the finale, because some of us will be missing Wishwell to watch it at the cinema. So we're all going to just come back after that. But next week will be where we review the Interstellar Song Contest, which will be really fun. I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to the episode. Um, yeah, it's really a lot of fun. But thanks to Jack, and if you
Thank you,
enjoy
guys.
if you enjoyed this episode, hopefully see you next time. So yeah, see you guys.